All right, so this video coming to you right now is going to be my reading goals of 2023. Now, I understand it is already February. Never mind that. I'm not really keeping up with TBRs as much anymore. I'll probably still get back to doing blah, 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 blah. Hello. I will get back to getting, wow, I did it again. I'll get back to doing wrap-ups here shortly. But TBRs, I haven't been sticking to the last few months, and I find myself more and more just wanting to wrap up series that I kind of abandoned for one reason or another, and really just get through stuff as I feel like reading it. So I guess I'm turning into a bit of a mood reader, at least right now. Don't really want to plan out too much, but there are some plans here very loosely. I don't know exactly what order I'm going to read these in particular, but these are all the things that I plan on at least reading throughout the year. So the one chunky boy that I have in my hand right here is The Dark Tower. Now, this is the only book I have left in the Dark Tower series. I ended up skipping all of the tie-in books other than Salem's Lot because I had already read it, but I really didn't want to go down the route of feeling like I needed to read a dozen other books to get, the best experience out of The Dark Tower, because I feel like it flows very well just as its own series. And from my understanding and what I've looked up since getting all the way to the final book now, is a lot of the tie-in books are barely even references to other books. And I don't think it's necessary to read all those things to get fulfillment out of this. I'd say The Stand is probably one of the biggest ones that I don't even want to say I regret not reading yet, because they definitely mention it a few times, but sort of in passing even for that. So I will read a bunch of the things that do associate with The Dark Tower, because I love Stephen King's writings and I have yet to read a bad Stephen King book. But just read Dark Tower. If you want to read Dark Tower, it's fantastic. It's super weird and awesome and out there. And so far, I mean, at least in my experience with Stephen King, he just can't help himself when it gets to writing some like weird sexual encounter in most of his books. There's always some weird fucked up sex scene of some kind, which is odd. I don't really know why he feels the urge to do that, but it's in the series too. And it's kind of important. Anyway, I love The Dark Tower, weird sex stuff aside, and it's great. I'm excited to finish this up. And then at some point, I am going to talk to Philip Chase, and I'm sure I'm going to pick his brain about The Dark Tower. So looking forward to that. Next up, I'm not going to hold these up because all the books are over there on my sci-fi shelf. You can't see that because it's zoomed in on me. This is where the focus is. I'm pointing at The Expanse. I need to read book 4 and on. So I've read 3 of these. Cibola Burn is the next book in the series that I have to read, and I just want to get back to The Expanse because I genuinely enjoy it. I love Holden and his whole crew. I love the multiple POVs that James S. Corey uses throughout. I love the plot and the politicking, and just the big epic, space opera feeling that this series has grown into beyond just the, them finding the proto-molecule. So it's great. I love the dynamic between the crew of the Rocinante. That's really the heart and center of these books. And like I said in my review for Abaddon's Gate, no shit. Did I read Cibola Burn? I think I read Cibola Burn. Yes, I did. I'm the worst. Did I? Look it up on Goodreads real quick. Cibola Burn. I did read that one. Boy, howdy. So that means Nemesis Game is the next one. Cibola Burn, I remember, was my favorite when I read it because of the human interaction and conflict. And it was very much a human versus human kind of story. And I loved that about it. And I liked what they were fighting over. I just loved the entire dynamic of that plot. I remember when I read stuff, he said convincingly, which leads me to what I started to do. Not really as a read-along. I know Jimmy's doing a read-along for Lord of the Rings, which is why I partially jumped into reading it. I haven't continued to the Two Towers just yet. I think I started it, but I've only read like a chapter. By the way, Boromir in Fellowship movie, far greater than the Two Towers version of what happens to Boromir. Anyway, Tolkien. So I have lots of Tolkien books now. Of course, only the ones edited by Christopher Tolkien, as I've learned through my mistakes at Barnes & Noble that there's a bunch of bullshit that's out there that has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings and is basically made up, but it's all talking about Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, and it's not, it doesn't have the check mark of Christopher Tolkien. It's not from the estate. It basically is just made up bullshit. So all this stuff, though, I do want to I can't speak today. I want to continue reading all of Tolkien's work, everything that's been published. I have Fall of Numenor. I've got Beren and Luthien, Children of Hurin. I've got all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to finish the main Lord of the Rings book and then move on to all the other Middle-earth stuff. So I want to get to all of that this year because it's been a minute since I've actually read through Lord of the Rings in its entirety. I reread The Hobbit. I went through Fellowship. I need to get back to the Two Towers and then read all the stuff that I never read before, including the Silmarillion, because I'm super interested in reading all of that finally. Next up, getting back to Robin Hobb and the Realm of the Elderlings. Now, I'm not going to be a crazy person and say that I'm reading all of the Realm of the Elderlings because that's just insane. It's too many books, too much commitment. But I need to get back to the Liveship Traders. So Mad Ship, Book 2. For some reason, when I read Ship of Magic, I just didn't continue at the time. And again, this is my problem with TBRs, is when I'm starting so many series and reading one book at a time and then getting into buddy reads and stuff, I just end up not finishing series, and I hate that. So I want to just wrap some things up that I started. So I'm going to wrap up, I was about to say Liveship. I really can't speak tonight. I don't know what my problem is. But Mad Ship and Ship of Madness, what is it? Ship of Destiny. I'm just making up books now. But I'm going to finish up that series this year and then potentially get to the next one because I do want to read all the Fitz books. He's my favorite character in Realm of the Elderlings so far. Ship of Magic, Liveship, a little bit of a different feel. I didn't like it quite as much, at least through book 1, just because I'm not a big seafaring person. I don't like boats. The whole concept and magic around the series is awesome, though. So that's why I'm staying invested, and I just love Robin Hobb as a writer. She's brilliant. So I'm going to get that under my belt this year. Speaking of boats, I did like Red Seas Under Red Skies. I always have to think about the title for some reason. But Scott Lynch is who I'm talking about, and Republic of Thieves is up next. So I will wrap up the third published book of the Gentleman Bastards, which I hear leaves you on a bombastic ending and a massive, not cliffhanger, but I need the next book hanger. That's a thing. So I don't actually ever know if this series is going to be finished. But I love Gentleman Bastards. I didn't love book 2 quite as much as book 1 because Lies Lockamora is pretty perfect in my opinion. But I'm looking forward to this. I hear nothing but fantastic things about it. And hopefully Scott Lynch continues the series at some point and I'm able to actually read more of it because I want some more of it. They're good books. Next up, and I honestly can't believe I haven't gotten to this yet, The Lonesome Crown by Brian Lee Durfee, our number one TV show in all of humanity in the universe on YouTube. This is book 3 of the 5 Warrior Angels series, and I loved book 1 and 2, Blackest Heart and Forgetting Moon. I want to see how he wraps it up. I know that it was initially going to be 5 books, ended up being 3, so I don't know what to expect as far as a conclusion to this series. But I remember absolutely loving The Blackest Heart when I read it. I probably need to refresh my memory a little bit on some plot points before diving into this, but I love his writing. I love the plot so far of this book. I've mentioned it plenty of times on the channel before, but I think he has one of the most convincing and believable religions that I've read in a fantasy book or series, and the way that he plays with it and the way it folds into the plot, I don't want to spoil anything, is just really well done. And I love his writing style. I love the way that he gives you information about the world and why things are the way that they are. He's got badass assassins in these. He's got just so much going for it. And it just feels like a super deep lore and carefully constructed world that is just great. And if you like sort of chunky, lore-filled, lots of info to sink your teeth into kind of fantasy novels, this series is for you. And it's also violent as shit, and I love that. Next up, and probably the main reason I'm not going to try to read all of The Realm of the Elderlings is because I want to restart and then actually get through all of Malazan. So I read Gardens of the Moon last January, and I really enjoyed it. And then for whatever reason, probably just because I don't own all the books physically, I just stopped. And also I was reading Dresden and Stormlight and Wheel of Time, and it was just too much. That's the real reason. But I want to read this again because I have forgotten most of it. It was a year ago. And then I want to continue. I do own Dead House Gates, but even the trade paperbacks, none of them are consistently the same size or like the same bind up. Like the titles are different sizes and fonts, and they're offset. And I don't know. I don't want to buy mass markets because I hate them. I want to get either all trades if they exist or hardcovers, but the hardcovers are really hard to get and they're crazy in price from book to book. So who knows? I own the whole thing on Kindle, so I might just end up reading it on Kindle and then collect the books as I can find them. That's probably what I'm going to do. But I'm going to get back to Malazan because one, my buddy DJ absolutely loves it. It's his favorite fantasy series of all time. Obviously, lots of people on YouTube like it. I've always been told how good it was, and I did really enjoy Gardens of the Moon. So I want to get deeper into the world and actually continue through on to the rest of the series and see what's in store for me. Next up, and I can't believe that I haven't read a First Law book in a while, but I absolutely loved the First Law original trilogy. I really, really liked Best Served Cold. So I believe next is The Heroes, which is up there, where you can kind of see that I'm pointing up there, but I own all of them. I love Joe Abercrombie and his books. So I'm going to finish First Law. I'm going to read everything. So I've got, 2 standalones, and then Age of Madness stuff, and then Sharp Ends. I guess I'll read at some point too. So that'll be pretty easy to accomplish this year, and those books are fantastic. I'll probably find a reason to talk with Liene about them, because I think she likes First Law. I'm not convinced. Maybe she loves it. Who knows? But I'm going to read those, and then probably end up talking to her, because apparently we just talk about all the books that we read, because we just talked about Sun Eater, Ashes of Man. Live shows in the link down below. That was on her channel. It was a great time. Also, what was supposed to be a buddy read, we did talk about The Wolf. Myself, Alan, Jimmy, over at the Fantasy Network, and Liene. Under the Northern Sky by Leah Carew. We spoke about The Wolf in a live show, and it was one of the funniest live shows I've ever been a part of. We laughed uncontrollably several times. It was a great time. I have since read The Spider. I don't believe Alan or Jimmy have yet. Liene, of course, went ahead because she had an interview with the author. She read The Cuckoo before any of us even finished The Spider. So, that's a character flaw she'll have to deal with. But she did awesomely send me The Cuckoo. Thanks, Liene, for Christmas. So I am going to read it. Now I feel weird, though, because I own The Spider on Kindle. I own The Wolf in trade paperback, and now The Cuckoo in hardcover. So I'm a mess. I'll have to fix that at some point. But she could not sing enough praises about this book, and this is on top of The Wolf that she already thought was perfect, and this is perfecter. So yeah, The Cuckoo, looking forward to it. Want to see how this wraps up, because I don't know how it's going to wrap up. But if I did, I would be able to predict the future, and that would be weird. And finally, as I had an urge to, in anticipation of Lightbringer, so Red Rising Book 6, coming out later this year. I wanted to reread all of Red Rising. It had been a while since I have touched those books, and I adore them. I do remember not liking Red Rising Book 1 the first time around. I almost DNF'd it several times. Upon rereading it now, I'm almost done with it, because this is part of a read-along. I don't dislike it at all, and that's probably just my bias speaking, because I love the series so much after it that the flaws that I had and the problems that I had with it initially don't really exist anymore. So because I wanted to reread these, I actually messaged Liene. I was like, hey, you have any urge to reread Red Rising? She was like, haha, I'm doing a read-along with Angela at Literary Science Alliance, so you want to join that? And I was like, yup. So we're doing that, and we'll be talking about this. I don't know who the first live chat will be on, either Angela or Liene's channel, maybe. Liene said this is her least favorite, so we'll probably make her do it. But we're going to be doing live chats of all 5 books, and then reading and reviewing and talking about Lightbringer when it comes out. There's also going to be giveaways along the way in collaboration with some Instagram creators that make awesome stuff related to Red Rising. So keep an eye out for that. I'm basically just piggybacking on their read along. So discussions will be in Angela's Discord, at least for the time being. I don't know if we're going to get all the Discords involved. Obviously, I'm reading and talking about it in my Discord. So if you're in my Discord and you're reading Red Rising, feel free to join in on the conversation there. Looking forward to those live chats and the giveaways. I believe Liene and or Angela probably have the information. I'm just the dum-dum that likes reading the books. And I just kind of jumped into their read along, okay? I'm just like the hype man, all right? So that's my reading plans right now. It's still a good amount of books. I mean, between Malazan and whatever I read in Realm of the Elderling and all the Abercrombie books, I mean, it's basically what Liene would probably read in like a month, but it's going to take me at least a couple of months, if not half the year. So that's my reading goals right now. Obviously, there's a ton more stuff here. I just started actually documenting in a spreadsheet how many books I own and how many I've read. And apparently, physically, I have 265 fantasy books, caveat, a little asterisk, and I've read 131 of them. So I was like, oh, cool. I've read about half the fantasy books that I own. And then I counted up my horror, my manga, my sci-fi, my Audible purchases, and my Kindle purchases. And I have not read half the books that I own. It's a much lower number than that. But that's okay. I also just like collecting books. So that's it for my reading goals right now. We'll see how much of them I actually get through. That hit the ground. That's it for me, homies.